At 5'10" in tall and weigh 165 pounds, but I have my strengths. We first meet in college when I was 23 and she was 21, while chasing a double degree in economics and accounting. I also served in the army. Though my army service didn't always entail being in the midst of conflict, it was nevertheless perilous. Our unit was tasked with executing individual missions, often involving dealing with supposed allies. Essentially, we were trained as executioners, with my specialization lying in planning and close combat after advancing at 25. I left the army 2 years later and married Linda. Within 4 years, we welcomed 2 daughters. I managed accounting for local businesses from home and engaged in some sales as well. Linda took care of the children, but when our marriage reached its 10th year, she secured a position at a nearby laboratory affiliated with the college. With both girls in school and me working from home, she was able to return to a job she enjoyed. We resided in the same house where I grew up, having acquired it from my parents when they relocated to Florida. During my college years, some of our army missions provided lucrative rewards which we divided among the unit. This enabled me to afford necessary expenses. One February evening, we decided to dine out and hit the dance floor at a club with our neighbors, accompanied by babysitters for the kids. 8 of us ventured out. Linda and I booked a room at a hotel linked to the dance club. She looked stunning in a slender 5'6" in tall figure adorned in a blue silk dress. We had an entertaining dinner and were immersed in dancing at the club when a group of 6 individuals joined us. One of them was a hefty blonde-haired man named Mark Stevens, a professional midfielder for the local team. Every woman at our table immediately took notice of him. Stevens was accompanied by a charming blonde, sporting what seemed to be a sizable wedding ring on her finger. They danced together. Our friend June mentioned she was a cheerleader for the team and engaged to Stevens. After some time, I observed Steve glancing over at our table. He rose and made his way towards us. He directly approached Linda and simply asked her to dance without acknowledging me. I placed my hand on her shoulder in an attempt to halt her, but she rose from the table and joined him. She didn't even glance back at me. I felt more than a little irritated. My annoyance grew when, after 2 lively dances, it was time for a slow one and seemed to melt into Mark's embrace. I stood up and headed to the bar. Passing by them directly, the women at our table disapproved of my action, and they made it clear nonetheless. I proceeded. Linda didn't seem to notice me passing by at all. I ordered coffee. When the slow song concluded, they separated and Linda returned to our table. I stayed at the bar sipping my coffee. I saw her glance around for me and spot me there. She appeared somewhat concerned. She sat down beside June. I approached, and as I drew nearer, they both stood up. "Did you enjoy yourself?" I inquired. "I'm sorry, perhaps I got a bit carried away," I added. "Maybe so," June interjected. "Tom, it was just a little dance, nothing significant," Linda remarked. I found it disrespectful towards me. I took a seat. "June and I are stepping out to the restroom. We'll be back shortly." Linda said. They departed, and Mark exited through the front door, alone without the blonde. June returned, but Linda wasn't with her. I inquired, "Where is she?" "Tom, Linda's not here. She left with Mark. June anymore," responded. "Are you joking?" I rushed outside and witnessed Linda getting into the red Escalade, which then began to move. Returning to the table, I found June conversing with the others. "Did you all know what she was up to?" I questioned. June replied, "Tom, you have to let her have the night check. Come back to you tomorrow." "No, I don't want her to return. Make sure she knows this when you speak with her. We're done," I declared, prompting a collective uproar at the table. They considered my reaction too severe, so I snapped at them. "I want nothing to do with any of you anymore. You all knew and didn't warn me, so maybe I could have intervened. Now she'll jeopardize everything for a night of passion." I headed to the front desk, but noticed a blonde woman at a nearby table with the other 4 individuals who had accompanied Stevens. She appeared distraught. I approached her. "Are you his girlfriend?" I inquired. "Yes, I was his girlfriend, but not anymore." "Where did they go?" She replied, "To our house on Lane. He promised he wouldn't do it once we were engaged," she disclosed. "Excuse me, was that your wife?" I muttered. "Cowardice is the theme." "Here," I muttered, "damn it, sort things out in the morning and take her home. He enjoys flaunting his conquests." What a fool at this. 2 other men, one black and the other white, both sizable, took offense. I paid them no mind. I handed me my business card and requested her to give me a call. She smiled, but tears streamed down her face. I walked off, grabbing my coat, but leaving Linda behind. Reaching upon the hotel room, I retrieved my suitcase while leaving Linda's behind, then proceeded to check out. Driving home, a well-formed plan began to take shape in my mind. This scenario wasn't unfamiliar to me, reminiscent of my military days which had kept me alive. I wished I had devised a plan earlier, before Linda's departure. Parking my car in the garage, I activated the security system before heading inside. In the basement, I retrieved the rope I had stashed away for years. Returning upstairs, I undressed and ascended to the second floor donning black underwear, a hoodie, dark grey sweatpants, old sneakers, 2 pairs of gloves and a balaclava. I made my way to the attic, with the rope securing it to the beam. As I did in childhood, I climbed out of the narrow window and descended the house wall. On the other side, dense forest awaited sprinting. I hurdled the fence and made my way to the adjacent workshop inside. I gathered a backpack, extra wool socks, a pocket knife, and an old hand axe. Stuffing them into the backpack, I retrieved my bike and pedaled towards the river through the surrounding woods. Crossing the river bridge, I headed towards Cherry Lane, spotting a house adorned with a football player statue and a red Escalade parked outside. I approached with axe and knife in hand. I leapt over the fence and dashed past the SUV employing the axe. I shattered the passenger side window, triggering the alarm. Taking cover behind a nearby column, I waited briefly. As the porch light flickered on, the door opened, revealing the unsuspecting target. He stepped outside, armed with a semi-automatic pistol. Swiftly, I struck him on the head with the axe, causing him to stumble and crawl. Delivering a decisive final blow with both hands, I incapacitated him, before swiftly retreating and shutting the front door behind me, racing away. I vaulted over the stone wall and returned to my awaiting bike. I donned wool socks and packed the axe, knife, gloves, and shoes into the backpack, then zipped it shut. Mounting my bike, I sped towards the river. Upon reaching the bridge, I halted and hurled the entire backpack into the swiftly flowing water, propelled by the rain from the previous day, retracing my path through the nearby forest. I pedaled back towards the house. Arriving at the workshop, I swapped my socks for a fresh pair of sneakers. I sprayed the bike's handles and pedals with an ammonia solution, wiping them clean. Returning to the house, I scaled the side fence and climbed through the small window, a more challenging task than anticipated. I coiled the rope and wiped the windowsill with a rag. Before dashing to the basement, stripping off my clothes, including the mask and gloves, I tossed them into the washing machine. After a thorough shower, I dressed in gym shorts and ascended to the main floor, leaving the basement door ajar for monitoring. Once the washing machine cycle completed, I retrieved the club attire I wore the previous night downstairs. Again, I transferred the damp clothes to the dryer, then returned to prepare snack axe and pour a glass of whiskey. Pondering my actions, I awaited the dryer's signal. When it finished, I collected the dried clothes and restored everything to its place. The balaclava found its spot at the rear of the closet. Glancing at my watch, it read 2:50 a.m., marking the culmination of events since entering the house. Having returned from the club at midnight, I settled onto the sofa downstairs, sipping more whiskey until sleep overtook me. I awoke to the doorbell ringing at 6:02 a.m. Glancing at the door camera display, I spotted an African-American woman and a white man with short hair. Cops. The doorbell chimed again, prompting me to open the door. "Who are you? You look like a police officer," I remarked. "I'm Detective Asper, and this is Detective Logan." The black woman responded, flashing their badges, uncertain. I hesitated. "Is this about Linda? He didn't injure her, did he?" I inquired anxiously. "No, she wasn't physically injured, but Mr. Stevens was attacked." "May we come in?" Detective Asper inquired. "Certainly," I acquiesced. "Where is Linda? Did you bring her with you?" the white detective asked. "No, sir. She's in the hospital, receiving treatment for shock," I informed them. Pausing briefly, our gaze locked momentarily, a silent exchange of questions. "Please have a seat." I gestured towards the sofa, though they opted for separate chairs with rigid backs, leaving the sofa for myself. "I believe it's best if you explain what occurred," I suggested. "What have you been doing since your wife left the club with Stevens?" Detective Logan pressed. "Just tell us what happened," Detective Asper interjected. "No, you simply need to answer the question," I retorted. "I returned to our hotel room, packed my belongings, checked out, and came straight here. I ended up drinking myself to sleep on this sofa. You've just woken me," I disclosed. "Is there anyone else here?" Asper inquired. "No, the children are with the nanny for the night," I affirmed. "Did you make any calls, contact anyone to verify your whereabouts?" Detective Logan probed. "No, but I never left," I replied. Asper surveyed the room. "I notice you have a security system. Can you provide details?" she asked. "It covers all the doors. I can prove my presence here," I assured them. "Letun, head upstairs," I suggested, leading them to the office. Seated at the computer desk, I demonstrated the security system uploading data from 6 p.m. until their arrival. They briefly reviewed the evidence. The security system was configured to monitor all 3 doors, the front entrance side door and sliding patio door leading to the pool. The side lacking a door overlooked the woods and featured 2 non-opening large windows, rendering it unsupervised. "WEC, need to confiscate this computer," Logan declared. "Why you witnessed me downloading security data." I countered, because you could have tampered with it before our arrival. He explained, all right, but I can't be without it for more than a day. This is a work computer and I rely on it. I have a replacement, but it's not a long-term solution. I explained, watch me, I'll transfer some files onto this external drive, including the data you received, and it's done. I assured them. They expressed a desire to inspect the premises, and I consented, emphasizing the importance of them staying together and remaining in my presence. After snapping a few photos, they departed at 7:10 a.m. I reached out to Linda's parents, John and Stephanie, who resided next door, but were currently at their lakefront property. Detailing the events to them, I relayed the police's information that Linda was in the hospital in a state of shock. John was taken back by Linda's actions, while Stephanie appeared less surprised. Are you planning to visit her? Stephanie inquired. No, I won't. That's why I called you. I really want to distance myself from her after what she's done. While it's regrettable that the man was attacked, it's not my responsibility. Apparently, he's engaged in such behavior multiple times. When she's released from the hospital, she needs to stay away from me in the house. We can arrange for her belongings to be relocated. I explained, why not consider moving herself and she can't stay? The children have grown up in that house. This is my home. It's not marital property. John, being a lawyer, proposed, hinting at a potential legal resolution. You should have waited, he remarked. That's pretty harsh, Tom. Not as harsh as what she did to me with that. The conversation concluded. I then telephoned my parents in Florida, recounting the events as best I could. They too were taken back by Linda's actions. My father switched on the TV, informing me about news concerning Stevens. According to reports, he was attacked and eliminated in his home. This came as no surprise to me. As I hung up, the landline rang. It was Judy. Tom, where's Linda? We heard about Mark's passway. She's in shock at the hospital, as the police told me. Have you seen her? Which hospital? She inquired. I'm not sure, and I have no intention of seeing her. I won't be offering any support, I replied firmly. Don't be like that. She needs you. Judy promises she won't get any support from me. I don't care if her big night was ruined. If it was ruined, then good, I retorted. You're heartless. Judy accused. Did you liquidate Mark? She asked. No, but I don't regret it. Good riddance, I responded, before Judy hung up. After another shower, I dressed and headed to pick up the kids from the babysitter. Around 8 o'clock upon arrival, I learned they hadn't heard about the previous evening's events. We returned home, and they inquired about Linda's whereabouts. I don't think she'll be here today. She has something to attend to anyway. Let's spend the day enjoying football, I informed them, taking them to the soccer complex for their noon and 1:30 games. I relaxed as I watched them play. Michelle, the youngest, played well, while Laura, though less skilled, gave it her all. It was good exercise for them. After the games, we indulged in ice cream before heading home. My mobile phone had several messages, but I had muted the sound while spending time with the girls. One was from Linda's parents, informing me she was at St. Judy's and unresponsive. Another was from a hospital doctor requesting a callback. Judy left a message mentioning Linda was at the police station and uncommunicative, suggesting I bring the girls to her. I explained to the girls that their mom was at the hospital, emotionally shaken by events from the previous night. They were curious, so I reluctantly revealed that she had accompanied a famous football player to his house for lemming, resulting in a traumatic incident. Despite their uncertainty, I encouraged them to get ready to visit her, returning the doctor's call. I spoke with Laura Thompson, who disclosed that Linda was in a catatonic state due to trauma. I inquired about bringing the kids, to which she hesitated. Do you plan to visit her? She asked. I'd rather not, for reasons you probably know, but I can bring the girls if it might help. Do they understand what happened? I responded, you mean about Linda and the football player? She clarified. Yes, they're ready to go, if it might benefit Linda. I confirmed. All right. Meet me in room 311 and 30 minutes. She instructed. We arrived, and Dr. Thompson, a psychiatrist in her late 40s, briefed us before allowing the girls to enter. She explained Linda's state and suggested their presence might be beneficial. Approaching Linda. Cautiously, Laura touched her hand and addressed her as Mum, but there was no response. Shelley followed suit, but with no reaction from Linda, she began to cry. Approaching Linda. I embraced her, but there was no response. Taking Laura's hand, I guided them towards the exit. Well, we gave it a shot, I remarked. Will she wake up? Laura inquired. Certainly. Someday, I reassured her. Perhaps you can visit her again soon when she regains consciousness. You'll have the chance to see her. But what if she doesn't wake up? Shelley whispered anxiously. I assured her that she would wake up, maybe not right away. The doctor interjected. Girls, I'll be sure to inform you when she regains consciousness. With that, we left the hospital, both girls tearful in the car. I questioned whether it was a mistake to bring them along despite my anger at Linda's betrayal. I didn't wish this upon her, though she deserved consequences. Not like these tears streamed down my face. Back home, I prepared scrambled eggs and toast involving the girls in cooking. Pretending I needed their help, they eagerly assisted, revving in the opportunity to assist me. Then I put on a movie for them and retreated to my office. I telephoned my friend, a public defender, hoping to glean information about the events at the Stevens house after I left. While he couldn't access police reports, he suggested ambulance mileage reports as a potential source. We ended the call, and I returned to the living room, absent-mindedly watching a movie, pondering the uncertain future. An hour later, my lawyer friend returned my call. He informed me via email about the ambulance call details. I recounted the police visit to him. He suggested that if the security system indicated no entry or exit, I likely had nothing to fear. However, he cautioned that the police might seek a search warrant or wish to interview me again, advising to consult a lawyer if necessary. Though I initially felt I didn't need one, I decided to contact the recommended lawyer, Joan Drake. Upon reviewing the ER report, I learned that police found Linda with Stephen's head in her lap, covered in blood, and wearing only a thin robe, repeatedly muttering no in distress. She remained unresponsive during transport to the hospital. Despite an officer's efforts to obtain information, the ordeal left me feeling sick. Pondering if she would ever recover, I investigated PTSD, having previously studied it for myself, along with shock-induced catatonia. While individuals typically recovered from a catatonic state, PTSD could persist for years. Lawyer Joan Drake scheduled an appointment for Monday morning at 9:30 a.m., providing her mobile number in case of early police arrival. Though they did not show up on Sunday, the girls and I spent the day goofing around as I reassured them that Linda would eventually return, still needing our support. As for myself, I wondered how she would react to me when she recovered. I doubted she saw anything, but if she did, it would likely be a masked figure in black attire. Perhaps she might suspect me. Uncertainty lingered. I doubted she had any prior experience with me that would lead her to seriously consider I was capable of what I actually did on Monday. I escorted the girls to school. I kept track of the local news coverage regarding Stevens' homicide. Though Linda's name wasn't mentioned, it was reported that Stevens was expecting a married woman when he was attacked outside his home. A neighbor alerted the police upon hearing Linda's screams. Until then, no one aside from the authorities had connected Linda or me to the homicide. However, I anticipated this perception would evolve over time, meeting with Joan Drake, a poised blonde around 45. She displayed the same sharpness my friend mentioned. I recounted the story from the beginning, providing her with a copy of the ambulance report, which left her visibly stunned. Assertively, I mentioned the unaltered CCTV footage that demonstrated no one entered or exited between my return home and the police's arrival. I requested the return of my computer for work purposes and provided the advance payment. As she dialed the police station requesting Detective Asper, I gestured that I would handle it. She agreed, arranging for someone from her office to retrieve the computer the following morning. After the call, I informed her I wouldn't engage with the police and would record any conversations if necessary. Later that afternoon, I departed. The girls arrived home from school and immediately inquired about Linda. I had already contacted the doctor, but there were no significant updates. They proceeded with their homework, and later we ordered pizza for dinner. I joked that if their mother didn't return soon, I would need to brush up on my cooking skills, eliciting laughter despite never cooking at home. I assured them I was a capable cook. When Laura's sister joined us upstairs, Laura asked if I could forgive Mum for her infidelity. Maybe, I replied honestly. Right now, I just want her to recover. Then the landline rang, and it was Jim Beeman from the newspaper. Mr. J, this is Jim Bean from the Tribune. Hello, we've received information that your wife Linda was with Mark Stevens when he was eliminated. Can you confirm? I'd prefer to keep this private. My kids are at school, and I don't want them involved. Jim persisted. So you confirm it. How do you feel about your wife's lovers pass away? I understand where you're going with this. If your publication injury, my family, I'll take legal action against you and your newspaper. It's an inevitable. Mr. Jode, I'm powerless to stop it, the caller warned. Gazing out the window, I spotted a TV truck parked outside Channel 7. I noted grimly, looks like you're right. Darn it, I have to go, I muttered apologetically. A knock interrupted, and peering through the camera, I saw a young woman with a microphone speaking through the intercom. I warned her to leave, threatening to involve the police if she persisted. Is your wife present? Mr. Jode, she persisted. I promptly dialed the local department rec requesting assistance in removing the press from my property. They responded, dispersing the group of 6 from the porch. Yet they lingered nearby, now joined by 4 trucks, instructing the doctor to ensure Linda's safety before the press arrived. I discussed options with the girls, suggesting homeschooling while residing elsewhere. However, they insisted on attending school, even if living elsewhere. I promised to consider their request, seeking guidance from my lawyer, Joan. She suggested making a statement to the press. To alleviate tensions, we arranged for the statement to emphasize our desire for Linda to resume her normal routine. My statement asserted that I do not engage in commenting on rumors regarding my wife, and will maintain this stance in the future. It is emphasized that any continued media presence outside our residence could lead to legal repercussions if it endangered the family, and politely requested the departure of the trucks. Concurrently, Detective Asper and her superior scheduled a press conference for 700 p.m., which I watched. During the conference, the police disclosed that Mark Stevens was assaulted and fatally wounded with a sharp object outside his home. They clarified that although a woman was present in the house at the time, there was no indication she witnessed the attack, and reiterated that the investigation was ongoing. The initial query inquired about the marital status of the woman and whether her spouse was a suspect. Detective Asper responded, stating, "Since you are aware of her identity, it is evident she is married. However, our thorough investigation found no evidence linking her husband to the attack. In fact, he remained at his residence throughout the night, far from the crime scene." A reporter then asked about other married women potentially involved with Stevens. Detective Asper confirmed that they had investigation suspicion of Stevens engaging with married women, revealing some truth to these claims. She added Stevens seemed to have engaged with multiple married women, sometimes in the presence of their husbands. This aspect is being thoroughly explored in our investigation. Chief Johnson concluded, indeed, the meeting, stating, "That's all for now. If there are any further updates, before our briefing on Wednesday, we'll inform you." The police departed amidst shouts. I arranged with the girls' school to have their assignments delivered or sent digitally over the next few days. I alerted Linda's parents about the possibility of press attention, but no reporters had appeared yet. They also vacated our street on Tuesday. The doctor called, informing me that Linda was showing signs of responsiveness, and the police were present with her. I informed her parents and gathered the girls to accompany me to the hospital. Upon our arrival, the police were just leaving. Detective Asper mentioned she wished to speak with me after I met with Linda, to which I agreed. Linda appeared dazed, though she greeted the girls warmly and embraced them, though she avoided eye contact with me. The girls updated her about the television trucks in school, but then Linda seemed to drift off, prompting the doctor to advise letting her rest while her parents conversed with the girls outside. I spoke with Detective Asper. "She seems to be improving," remarked Asper. Maybe I responded uncertainly. "Indeed. Are you planning to bring her home until she fully recovers?" "Then consider separation," inquired Asper. "I believe she deserves a reprieve. What more punishment could she face beyond what is already occurring? It's not about punishment, it's about respect and trust. I'll never trust her, and I'll never respect her. And perhaps she'll never respect me either," remarked Asper, smiling. "She might fear. You. Maybe she doesn't trust you either. You're trying to set me up," I countered. "You know very well I had nothing to do with Stevens's attack. I'm aware of your military background and your commendable service record. Perhaps an ordinary person couldn't have done it, but maybe you could have. I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I insisted that's not my concern. I wasn't present," I reiterated. Before leaving, it sounded like a veiled threat. In the following days, Linda gradually resumed normal behavior. I dropped off the girls daily, but didn't spend much time with them in the room. On the fourth day, Linda was set to be discharged. She requested a private conversation, so I sent the girls away. "I apologize for putting you in such a difficult situation," Linda began. "Apologies won't change anything, Linda. It's been incredibly humiliating for me now. It's all over the news. I'd like to go home after being discharged this afternoon." She continued, sitting on the bed and gesturing towards the chair. "Can I leave? The media is waiting. And I don't want the girls' lives to be further disrupted. Maybe I can slip away unnoticed." I gazed at her silently for a while. "You've always been skilled at slipping away," I remarked. She kept her eyes downcast. "I'll notify security. Being close to you isn't exactly what I want, but it seems I don't have much choice at the moment. I didn't want any damage to come to you. I thought you cared for me and could handle this, or maybe I didn't consider it at all. Did you two have lovemaking?" I inquired. "No. We were undressed in bed when everything happened," she replied. Observing her closely, I realized she was lying. "I can't say I believe you or anything you say for that matter. Trust is something I'll never be able to give you again. But we'll see how things unfold, all right." "I love you," she professed. Without a word, I turned and left. Arranging with the hospital security office, I organized a car to pick up Linda discreetly from behind the building and transport her to our home. The pickup was scheduled for 400 p. Proceeded smoothly and she arrived home around 4:45. The kids, everything and her parents were present. I prepared a bed for myself in my office while Linda would sleep in our bedroom. The rest of the day was incredibly awkward to say the least. Her parents seemed unsure how to navigate the situation. Linda, her mum and the kids played Monopoly in the living room. Her dad wanted to talk, so we went to the patio. John began, "What's your plan, Tom?" "I'm not entirely sure, but it's likely we're at the end of the road. Forgiveness is something you must strive for. You've shared a deep bond for so long and built a beautiful family." He stated, "I know, but I question if our love is truly endured. If she truly loved me, she wouldn't have done this. She claims they didn't have act of love." She remarked, "How would I know? She spent quite a while with him. Does it even matter? She would have done it. We all know that well. It might have mattered if he hadn't used protection. She could have contracted an illness or become pregnant." He didn't like this response. He thought, "She can stay here for now, but you might need to find another solution soon." We headed back to the house and enjoyed pizza together. Later, her parents left. To my knowledge, they didn't broach the topic of Mark with her. As we tucked the girls into bed, Laura queried Linda about her encounter with Mark. "I'm really sorry I was wrong, and I made a mistake, but I'm confused. He's just a football player. I've seen him. He's not our dad. No, not dad. I'll explain more about him to you later once I find out more." With the girls settled, Linda descended to the kitchen. About 10 minutes later, I followed. In the meantime, I telephoned my friend, a public defender, and inquired about the autopsy report. He informed me it was a public document, and I asked if he could obtain it. Linda sipped on Pepsi drinks. Wasn't advised for her, as it could trigger a relapse. She inquired, "Are you sleeping in our room?" "No, I'll be in the office." "Well, you're welcome. Anytime we'll have to wait and see. Right now, I don't see a way forward for us, but all of this just happened this week. I can be patient, really. I didn't notice. I ascended to my office and retired to bed. Sleep eluded me, and I rose at 5 o'clock a.m. To brew some coffee. A friend of mine sent over Stephen's autopsy report. I meticulously reviewed it, focusing on the trauma analysis, which revealed traces of ejaculate and female secretions. These samples were dispatched for laboratory examination. Linda's claim of no act of love seemed dubious, especially given the timing. She had been at St. Residence for roughly 2 hours prior to the homicide. Later, when she emerged downstairs, I accompanied the girls to school. Though they seemed somewhat downcast, I deliberated extensively on my choices. Were it not for Linda's condition, I wouldn't have allowed her back into the house. However, there were potential advantages, such as providing some relief for the girls. If things settled down upon returning home, another TV truck arrived, and a young woman disembarked shouting inquiries about Linda's whereabouts and my forgiveness. I grinned, gestured to her, and cautioned her against trespassing before heading inside. Linda baked cookies and offered me one, which I accepted. "There's a TV truck parked outside. They're unaware of your presence here, and perhaps it's better that way. What do they want? They have already published my name and my actions at his house. Can they cause any more damage? I'm sure they can conjure something up." I regarded her thoughtfully. "I've been contemplating what to do about you or us. I'd like you to jot down precisely what occurred last Friday from the moment that fool approached us until you ended up in the hospital. It doesn't have to be immediate, but sooner would be better if it's too distressing. You can skip certain parts and revisit them later. I'll give it a shot. I also need to check if I still have a job. Why would they let you go because of my affair? Why would that concern them? Well, I was absent for an entire week." She made the call and was informed she could take a week off due to illness, and the following week she retreated to her bedroom, sitting at her desk and typing on her computer. I left her to herself and retreated to my office, where I delved into stud. In the autopsy materials I'd received the test results. Though it might take a few days, it was evident that Linda was attempting to maintain a sense of normalcy around me. However, I couldn't help but feel she must have had questions about what transpired. Our routine continued for 2 days until the test results arrived. Linda's DNA and carnal fluids were detected, so it's likely she lied about having lovemaking. I waited to see what she would write to me regarding the events, but I couldn't fathom continuing life with her as my spouse. The next day, after dinner, Linda entered my home office. I finished writing this. She handed me the printout. I perused her words. "Tom, forgive me for my weakness when Mark asked me to dance. I was thrilled. He was charismatic and had quite a reputation as we danced. I was completely captivated. When the slow dance commenced, I was simply swept away. He drew me close to him. Honestly, I would have given in to him right then and there. I don't know why he had such an allure, but he did. He suggested we sneak out the side door and go to his house. He promised me the most incredible carnal experience of my life, and I believed him. When the dance concluded, I returned to our table and you were gone. I agreed to accompany June to the women's room upon your return. I noticed your intense anger, but I assumed you'd eventually calm down. My desire for Mark was overwhelming, so I slipped out the side door and we drove to his house. He kissed me upon entering, carried me upstairs to his bed, and we engaged in passionate lovemaking. As we neared the end, a car alarm blared. Mark donned his robe and went outside to investigate. In the meanwhile, I peered out the window, but saw nothing. However, I glimpsed a figure dressed in black leaping over the fence. When I reached the front door, I found Mark lying in the driveway, his head grievously injured. I was in a daze, overwhelmed with shock and guilt, feeling as though I bore responsibility for the tragedy. I recall being taken to the hospital. I'm remorseful for everything. I love you, and I can't fathom why I acted as I did, Linda. I gazed at her as tears streamed down her cheeks. Tom, were you the figure I saw? I was here all night, drowning my sorrows, lamenting the collapse of our marriage and the inevitable changes in our family. There was a burning resentment within me, but the police can confirm I was here. They have surveillance footage. That's what they told me. When I inquired, however, no excuses. I believe Stephen's got his just desert no. Tom, he didn't deserve that. He was decent and he upheaved your life, right? Tom, doesn't that count for something? I can't explain it, but understand, I may never love you the same way again. Perhaps not at all. The man I thought I married would never commit the actions you did. Was it worth it? Was the fleeting pleasure worth the devastation you caused? What did he lose? Sure, the lovemaking might have been remarkable, but it wasn't worth the catastrophic aftermath. If we had just spent that night together and I returned home the next day, maybe. But now he's dead and my life is ruined. Yes, forever. You eliminated him, she exclaimed before storming out of the room. No, you homicides. Him, I murmured quietly to myself. From that moment on, our relationship turned icy. I made a conscious decision not to try to persuade her of my innocence or seek reconciliation. Naturally, I would never confess what truly transpired, fearing she might betray me to the authorities as an untrustworthy accomplice. She had just admitted that Stevens hadn't been homicides. She would have considered the night worth the repercussions, albeit not in those exact words. Several weeks later, I initiated divorce proceedings seeking custody of the children so they could remain in the familiar surroundings of our home. Given Linda's employment, I opted not to request alimony, child support, or strict visitation rights. As Linda gradually regained stability, I insisted she find alternative accommodation. She chose to stay with her parents temporarily. I served her with divorce papers during her visit there, shortly after her father contacted me pleading for leniency as Linda was in distress. I stood firm, asserting she ought to seek legal counsel. He seemed furious, though it was unclear if his anger was directed at me or her. He inquired about visitation arrangements, to which I replied she could visit any evening and stay until the children's bedtime. The following day, Linda arrived at 5 o'clock p.m. We shared a meal of macaroni and cheese with the girls and engaged in a few board games before tucking them into bed. Linda expressed a desire to talk afterward, but I wasn't inclined to engage in conversation. We need to sort this out, Tom. It won't benefit the girls. If we're apart, they'll have to adjust. You can find a place where they can visit you. The sooner we finalize the divorce, the sooner we can establish a visitation schedule. Please, I don't want a divorce. I made a mistake. All right, it's a significant one, but I still love you. We can't stay married after you openly had lovemaking behind my back. Let us put it behind us and move forward. Linda's tears began to flow. Don't Sobe, just cry. Quietly, I felt genuine sympathy for her, but not enough to reconsider. It's over. The divorce proceeded and we agreed on joint custody. Linda found an apartment with a spacious second bedroom for the girls. We maintained a distant yet amicable relationship, focusing on the well-being of our daughters. About 4 months later, I began dating women from our social circle, and workplace knew I was single and I caught their attention when the girls were with Linda. I occasionally brought women home for the night. However, these relationships never lasted long, though the physical aspect was usually satisfying. I avoided married women, despite some showing interest, as I considered it unethical. After my own experience, Linda was great with the girls but struggling when alone. Despite taking antidepressants and sleeping a lot, she managed to fulfill her work responsibilities. Her parents and the assured girls me she wasn't dating after a decade. Shelley headed off to college while Laura was gearing up for her freshman year. They had adapted well to the joint custody arrangement and seemed to be thriving. Both of them had romantic relationships during high school, and Laura, I suspect, continued dating in college. Meanwhile, I was in a committed relationship with Cody, whom I met one night at a bar. Like me, she was divorced with 2 children, her husband having moved to the West Coast. We connected when she was 35. Her kids already in school. By the time they left for college, she moved in with me. I had genuine affection for her. She had a wonderful sense of humor, intelligence, and our chemistry was strong. While she might not have had Linda's beauty, She was attractive, drawing attention from men. When we were out together shortly after we got together, I shared with her the commotion surrounding Mark Stevens's pass away, though I never disclosed the details of how he died. Eventually, the controversy subsided and no one was ever arrested or charged. One Saturday, Detective Logan paid me a visit after retiring the previous week, sharing news of his pension. I'm glad things are going well for you, but what brings you here? I just wanted you to know that I was convinced you were responsible for that idiot's pass away, and well, he had it coming. Though maybe not your wife, I didn't do it, but he definitely had it coming. I applaud whoever did it. Why do you think Linda didn't deserve it? Well, it was just one indiscretion, and she did what many married women do when approached by someone like him. If they had met discreetly to infidelity, maybe it would be easier to overlook, but it was too brazen in public. Understand, how's your partner doing? She's a captain now. Quite a tough cookie. She had some keen insights. I replied, we shook hands, and he departed. As for Linda, she eventually started to recover. We kept in touch. One day, when I was driving Shelley to school, I asked her how she was doing. Linda told me, I'm okay. I have a boyfriend, kind of like a friend with benefits. I know you and Cody are together, well, more or less, and when her kids move out, we might move in together. Linda whispered, I wish none of this had happened. We'd be empty nesters by now, having some real fun. I'm still really sorry, me too. We both teared up later. She moved into her friend's apartment, but I don't think she ever fully recovered from that night, and neither did I. Perhaps I've never regretted it. It may have saved many marriages, one of my most impactful acts of